Hey everyone, welcome to the Run the World podcast, episode 9. So I'm in a hotel room right now and Drew is not here, so what's going on? Well, this is episode 9 and we're actually just going to continue our nutrition talk from last week. Drew is in a class in Georgia right now and I'm in California, and so we have part 2 of debunking nutrition myths coming up for you in a second, and I'm just doing a little intro here. So like I said, Drew's in a class in Georgia and I'm in California. I'm here doing the 4-in-4 FKT challenge, which is just a challenge that I made up for myself with training, just to make training a little bit more fun. So FKT stands for the fastest known time, and I picked out 4 routes that are official FKT routes that are in the California area. It's snowing a ton up in Flagstaff and Williams where we live right now, so it was nice to escape the snow and come and actually run in some trails this week. So created this challenge, the 4-in-4 FKT challenge, and I'm just going around 4 days that I'm here. I'm doing 4 routes and going for 4 FKTs. So that's the challenge for me, and you can follow along on my Instagram, Rach Runs World, if you want to follow up on that. So right now I've currently done 2 of the FKTs. I did one called Big Rock Ridge, that was yesterday, and then I did the second one today, which was Wildcat Canyon Loop. They're both in the Bay Area, really fun routes, and I'm hitting up 2 in the next 2 days, and I'm really pumped for those. But yeah, let's get to our topic of debunking nutrition myths, and we're just continuing it on from last week. Hope you guys enjoy. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment to let us know what you want to hear in the next podcast, or if you have any questions about nutrition or anything else running related. Thanks so much for watching, and let's get to the video. So next myth is you don't need that much protein.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Classic. I've heard this on multiple sides of the fence, of you don't need that much protein. I feel like most people, I would say a general belief is like, oh, have like a little bit of protein at every meal.
Yeah.
Which is a generally good advice to follow. But I think, again, we're talking about like athletes. We're talking about runners, lifters, people that are trying to perform at your best, which is a lot different than if you take the average person in America. Ideally, for you, we want you to be more than average. We want you to be the best you can be. And I think any person at their best is going to be like more fit than the average person.
Yeah.
Because the bar is kind of low, let's be honest. So you don't need that much protein is a like broad advice to a pool that you don't really want to be a part of. Like if you're trying to perform at your highest level. Right. We would say you need a lot more protein. How have you seen this as a factor in like the running world?
Yeah, I think if you're not eating enough protein, I have just realized for myself, I start getting little small injuries or things that just feel a little bit off, and I feel like I'm not recovering as well from workouts, or I'm kind of starting to get injured. If I up my protein a little bit, a lot of those little injuries or just feeling like super sore after a hard workout just kind of go away. And I'm still like sore after hard workouts, but usually just maybe for the day after or something like that, and it doesn't last for like days and days after.
Yeah, I feel it. Obviously, I used to, when I started working out, I would eat a lot of food, but protein levels were low. I might maybe 50 to 70 grams of protein for someone who is 180 plus pounds, even over 200 pounds. And I worked my butt off in the gym, but I wasn't gaining that much strength. And I felt like my muscle mass wasn't really going up. But I was putting in the work. I was showing up every day and like lifting as hard as I could, but I wasn't gaining strength or size in the ways that I thought I would. I was just like getting heavier, and I'd gain a little strength because sometimes when you're heavier, you gain a little bit more strength, but it wasn't efficient. And then I realized I was super under eating protein, and protein is just like a building block to building muscle and retaining muscle. Right. And I think even sometimes people think of runners or endurance runners as like, oh, well, they're not like big hulking people. They don't need muscle. It's like the muscle they have, they want to keep. Yeah, definitely. So if anything, I'm holding on to that for dear life. So you need the protein intake to maintain what you do have, because you don't want to lose any more. Yeah, I think when Drew first started running, he was kind of amazed. I think because he would look at these runner guys and be like, man, they like don't look super strong, but
they actually are very strong. Like their legs are very strong, and their legs were way stronger than his, at least for endurance stuff.
Exactly.
Maybe he could like squat more, but endurance wise, their legs were so strong compared to his legs. And the only way that you get that strength, even if it is strength from endurance, is having that muscle on there. And muscle only accumulates if you're eating protein.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no way around it. You kind of just need to eat a lot of protein.
Yeah.
And I could out-squat those guys. I could probably squat 4 cross-country guys on a bar. But then I could run a 20-mile week and be fatigued, and they can run a 90-mile week and feel less fatigued.
Right.
So there is like, at some point I had to give it to them of like, okay, you're clearly stronger than me in a very specific type of training that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And for endurance runners, I think, like we were saying, a lot of people think like, oh, you're running endurance, you don't need protein, but you're breaking down muscles while you're running. So every single time you're running, especially for long runs and long workouts and stuff, you're breaking down those muscles. So you need to refuel with protein so that you can make them stronger for the next run.
Yeah, exactly. So how much do you need exactly? Specifics. This is where it gets a little more controversial.
Yeah.
Because I think the science seems to be out/contradicting itself.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one study out there that I have seen where it's like, this is the amount of protein that you need.
Right.
What I have seen, especially in following the bodybuilding world more, and people like Jeff Nippard who give like really good advice that are like based on scientific studies, that he just is like, this is what it says, what should we do? And you can look up his YouTube channel, it's awesome stuff. On lifting, not running. But I have seen everywhere from 0.75 of your body weight in grams of protein to 1.25. Like,
body weight in pounds?
Body weight in pounds,
yeah.
Yes, to our European audience.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah.
I just, as an ex-phys major, like we always went in kilograms.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, 0.75 to 1.25, which is why a lot of people will give the advice of like 1 pound of protein or 1 gram of protein per pound of body
wow,
weight.
you're getting in that protein.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So I'm 190. I should eat around 190 grams of protein.
Yeah.
And I think, again, because it's not like scientific law, I think it's okay to be a little generous. Like if I had 170 grams, I think that'd be fine. If I had 200 grams, I think that'd be fine. I think it's like, just get as close as you can, but it doesn't need to land on the dot.
Yeah, exactly.
To work.
Yeah. I think that for me, I would rather like eat a little bit more protein than I need than a little bit less protein I need. Yeah. And so, I'll eat at least 100 grams of protein a day, and I try to get to at least that number for protein. Usually I'm like 100 to 120 grams of protein a day. But yeah, I was coached by Ryan Hall for a little while, and he was a really, really awesome marathon runner. And then he switched over to doing strength training, and he's like huge and jacked now. You can see before and after pictures, and it's just like completely different. But I remember when he was coaching me, he was getting into strength and lifting more. And he was the one that kind of like gave me that idea of eating a little bit more protein is probably better than like eating not enough, because he would just be eating protein like all day. Yeah. Like I would be doing a workout and he would be downing like a protein powder, like, I don't know, drink, or like stuffing a PB&J in his mouth like while he's biking next to me. So yeah.
Constantly eating. It was like almost funny.
Yeah, it was almost funny. He'd be like lifting PB&J.
Yeah. So, lifting the PB&J to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think his idea of eat a little bit too much protein instead of under eating it is probably a good idea for any athlete, I would say. Because
I think most, like, I don't know, most people, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I would say most people seem to think that if you eat too much protein, the worst that happens is like you pee out what you don't use.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like your body's like, no thanks, we had enough. So it's kind of like, unless you're having like a clearly negative effect from eating too much protein that you need to see your doctor about, then the worst case scenario is like maybe you're just like not using all of the protein. But it's better that than what Rachel's saying, where it's like, well, your body could have like got a little stronger, been a little bit more solid, and you didn't eat enough protein to fuel it properly.
Yeah, and the extra like protein that you eat, like the calories from that extra protein, it will just turn into energy later. It's just a less efficient way for your body to like get energy. Like the most efficient way is from carbs. So like we were saying earlier, it's like very quick energy bursts. And then fat and protein are less efficient ways, but there's still a way for your body to get energy. So if you overeat protein, it's not necessarily a bad thing because it will just turn into energy later. And then the parts of it that you don't need, like Drew said, you just pee out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think even for someone who's getting into running, and maybe I think with people who are newer to a sport, might come from a background of maybe they do have to lose weight, or maybe they do have to gain a large amount of weight or something like that, because maybe these are the first times you've put these processes in place. Like for me, like I didn't eat healthy in college. I had a lot of work to build up before I could even start running or training at a higher level, because I just had like dietary backlog to catch up on. So if you're like me at all, you might need to be like, oh, I need to just like get into a healthy habit of diet and eating foods that are like benefiting me instead of just making me feel good. Like they should make you feel good, but they should make you perform well. Most importantly.
Totally. Yeah, it was amazing to me to hear Drew's diet in college, because basically he would eat like one really gigantic meal and then like not eat for a really long time and then have another really, really gigantic meal whenever he got hungry. And I was like, wow, that is so weird. But I think that's actually probably more common than I think it is in college. Just not maybe from like an athlete perspective, but I think that there are people in college, like I knew girls that were in like sororities or something like that, that would only eat maybe one meal a day or something like that. So I don't know, I think that's more common. So if you're coming from that perspective and getting into running, you probably should spread out your meals and be eating more through the day. Yeah.
Because again, the range of health is pretty generous. It's not like you have to weigh 150 pounds or you can't do this. It's pretty generous.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like probably 50 pounds on both sides to do things that you can still like feel good about doing, which is a lot. You can't gain or lose 50 pounds like that in a healthy way, at least. So there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of patience. You can do it. If you're like watching this, you're like, oh, I just can't do it. It's like, no, you can do it. Anyone can do it. It's very basic stuff. But simple doesn't mean easy. It will take a sacrifice. It will take discipline and motivation to get you through that. But anyone from any background can do this.
Yeah, totally. Sweet.
Next one. We talked about it a little bit, but now we're going to talk about a lot of it. Is lighter equals faster.
Not true.
False. Okay, false. Next one is I probably haven't seen this as much. Again, I am trying as hard as I can to not be lighter, which is not a usual runner thing. So you've probably seen this more from like pros in college, like D1 and above. This is probably preached more. So how have you seen this as an issue that's not true? Yeah,
for sure. I know personally for me, like I've talked about, I had an eating disorder in college just because it was, for me, triggered just by thinking that lighter would equal faster. And it did for like a little bit. And I think initially, like I did probably need to lose like a couple of pounds just to be at my very, very best. But I just went way too far on the other end of it and was like not eating enough to be able to sustain what I was doing. And yeah, it did lead to some PRs at first, but then it also led to some injuries and energy deficiencies and like losing my period and things like that, and things that just aren't good for any human to have a healthy, balanced life. So even if I was running faster, I wasn't healthy while doing it. And So yeah, I feel so much better now that I'm actually eating enough and eating consistently through the day and just getting in all of my energy needs, and I'm able to work out harder and better because of it as well. So yeah, I see this a lot. I think it's more common in probably high school and college athletes than it is in the pro athlete realm, and there's probably some pros that still struggle with things like this, but I feel like it kind of weeds people out. In a way, like if you're a high schooler and you're severely under eating, you probably are going to crash before you get to college. If you're in college and you're under eating, you're probably going to crash before you get to that pro level. And then by the time you're a pro, you've run high school, you've run in college, or at least you've run in college, and you know how much you need to be eating, and you know that you're going to crash. You've learned the lesson before you get there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that's why it's not as common in pros. Probably, I know that there are some pros that have spoken out about their struggles and stuff, and yeah, people that are still struggling with it, but I don't think it's as common as it is in college and high school.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's tough because there is some truth to this. There is a certain amount of truth of lighter, faster. I know right now at 190, if I was 170 and stayed I was still lifting, still eating, blah, 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 I would be faster. I'd be a lot faster. I would drop minutes off a marathon or a half marathon.
Yeah.
So there is some truth, but there gets to this line where people see this initial oh, I lost 5 pounds and I got a new PR. And then it feels good. It's easy to follow a scale that is so specific and numbered. And it's I went from 152 to 150, and then my PR went from this to this.
Right.
So it's easy to be oh, I have control over my body, I have control over my times, and if I just keep losing that indefinitely, then I'll just be super, super fast. But it's at some point, it's the law of diminishing returns, and to the point where it's even negative, where it starts flatlining, and then it starts going downhill, and you're not even progressing anymore. You're not even plateauing anymore. You're injuring yourself and hurting yourself.
Right.
So it gets to that line, and I think that's the line we're talking about. Runners, if you are running high-level high school to try to get to college, or you're already in college and you're performing at a high level, that's when you're trying to make those little cuts, those little improvements so that you could get to the next level, whether it be college or pro.
Yeah.
And that's when you're at a higher risk of going too low and dipping into that range of weight where it's not actually healthy, and lighter quickly becomes not faster.
Yeah, and it's also just very exhausting mentally, and I was not in a good place whenever I had an eating disorder, and I was just constantly thinking about food and calories that I was eating, and so my whole lifestyle was just not healthy, and it was just definitely controlled by food, which is not a great way to be living. Just a slave to food,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not fun at all. And I think we talked a little bit about how this could be a problem in high school and college athletes, and maybe not as much in the pro running world. But I think that there is the post-college world where a lot of us are in, where you're an adult runner, maybe you're not a pro runner, but you're just an adult runner, and maybe you're still struggling with some of these things, or you're new to running and you're trying to figure it out and stuff. I know I coach a lot of athletes that are in that class of adults who are running post-college, but they're not professional runners, and they are I know a lot of them that are under eating, and we do a nutritional intake when I first start coaching them. And a lot of people I have seen are eating under 2,000 calories a day, which if you're a runner in training for anything, I don't think that that's enough calories for you for the day. That's more for someone that's probably sedentary and not doing anything.
Yeah.
So yeah. I know it can be an issue too with a lot of people that aren't running professionally, but they're adults and just trying to do marathon training or train for a 5K or 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough again because it's a lie, but there is truth to it. Because if you weigh 250 pounds, then lighter does equal faster.
Yeah.
So it's It's broad advice. It depends on the individual and where they are currently in their journey of fitness.
Yeah.
So I think to some people that might be the easiest thing. If you're 250 pounds and you're trying to run a mile, then yeah, probably one of the easiest things to do is lose a lot of that weight so you're not carrying that weight vest when you're running.
Yeah.
And that will make you way faster and you'll feel way better for anything endurance-wise because you just won't have that stress of all of that, whether it's muscle or fat or a combo,
right,
just like plaguing you while you try to run. So it is like one of the simplest things you can do is lose weight if you have a ton of weight to lose. But if you're like in the range of healthy, which again, it could be 50 pounds on either side, then it doesn't always mean it's going to be the best choice. It could be like, at that point, if you're like in the range of where your body rests naturally and comfortably, maybe like training philosophies and like programming your weeks and having like better goals, those things could set you up better than losing more weight.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point too. Yeah. Sweet. Next one, bigger equals stronger. This isn't as much a running topic, so like I covered a little bit more of the lighter equals faster myth. Drew, I think, has a lot of insight into this one.
Yeah, I've heard like in the lifting world a lot, it's like more weight moves more weight. And some of that is true. Like if you weigh more, you have the potential to lift more. The strongest people in the world are often like the biggest people in the world. But what I would say is this kind of, my mentality has shifted a little bit because I thought a lot of people do like bulks and cuts, and maybe you've heard that before. Bulking is where you just gain a ton of weight, and then at the end of a bulk, you've gained all this extra weight, a lot of fat, and then you cut it down, and then hopefully in that build of all that weight, you gain some extra muscle. So then when you cut and lose that weight, then if you look at the before and after, let's say that takes 6 months, the before and after you have retained some of that muscle you've built and you've cut down the fat, so you actually like look more jacked, are healthier, stronger, pound for pound, and you've gained more muscle. That's what you have to do as like a natural athlete. I guess not natural athletes just take steroids and then they do whatever they want. But for the vast majority of us, that's what people do, is like a bulking phase, cutting phase. Or you can do it slow. It doesn't need to be a dirty bulk. It could be like a clean bulk where you don't gain that much weight. But this is what I would say. I have lifted with people where our bench max are the same, where it's like, hey, what can you lift? Oh, I can bench 245. And I'm like, yeah, I can bench 245 too. And I weigh 180 pounds and he weighs 245 pounds. And it's like, okay, which would you rather be? Like, what do you want to just like lift a heavy amount of weight just to say you lifted a heavy amount of weight? Or do you want to be strong? Very different.
Yeah.
I could weigh 300 pounds and bench 250 and do half the 250 project and then die trying to run a marathon. But that doesn't do me any good. So I think just being bigger doesn't mean stronger. I would say what should be taught more, and I think is being taught by people who do lift a lot and understand how this all works, is being strong for yourself. Like being pound for pound the strongest person you can be. And I think that applies to running in the sense of what we talked about earlier, how some of these, especially the guys, just look really weak, but are actually super, super strong. And pound for pound, they might be really strong.
Yeah.
They just don't have a lot of pounds to be pound for pound very strong.
Yeah, very
So,
true. Yeah, that's a good point too.
Those are some of the broad, that bigger doesn't necessarily mean stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. Sweet. Very last one that we're going to talk about is fasted cardio. Is that a good thing? Is that not a good thing? I think in the fitness world, a lot of times people have tried to say that fasted cardio is a good thing to do, which is what we're going to debunk, because we do not think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good thing to do.
No.
I have heard this. It was really big, I feel like, in the fitness world a few years ago, where it's like, oh yeah, fasted cardio, that's what's killing your gains. And it's like, oh, if you do that, then everything will change. And it's just like dumb. I think it could help, but not for the reasons people think. I think when it was originally thrown out there as fasted cardio, it was almost like a way to lose weight and stay lean, because it's like, oh, then you won't eat breakfast and then you'll just start at lunch and then you won't overeat.
because you're missing a meal.
Yeah, you're starving yourself pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, if you're running and you haven't had food, then you're just burning fat and like you're just gonna lean into Thor like instantly or something. But then the problem is then people overcorrect with their other meals. Then they get to lunch and they're starving.
Yeah.
And then they eat way more calories than they were supposed to if they just like ate throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then they eat like 2 massive meals instead of 3 normal meals or 5 smaller meals. And then nothing changes. They feel crappy in their workouts in the morning and they gain the same amount of weight that they normally would.
Yeah, talking from the side of performance, I just don't feel good off of running fasted. When we were at Drew's parents' house for Christmas, I was doing some runs in the morning where I didn't eat breakfast before I ran just because we would stay up really late because that's what they do at their house, and we're playing Fortnite a lot, and I was watching them until like 1 or 2 in the morning, which, threw off my schedule. But then I would be waking up really late into the morning, and I was like, I need to get my first run in, I don't have time, so I just like run, and I felt terrible. But yeah, anyway, I would not do like a workout off of that fasted cardio because I just did not feel good at all doing that. And in general, I just don't think it's good for endurance athletes. I think that it throws off your hormones a lot, especially for women. I've heard the case of maybe fasted cardio can be good for men who are doing ultra marathons because then their body's learning to burn fat more than it is carbs. But for women, I don't think that there is any benefit to doing that. I think that you just throw off your hormones a lot, and it can lead to like missed periods and just hormone imbalances a lot easier in women than it can in men.
Yeah, because this whole concept really touches on 2 different issues. Some people believe in fasted cardio for the weight loss side of it.
Yeah. And
some people do it for like the performance side, which I don't get the performance side. I have no idea how that could be beneficial for you performatively. As an endurance athlete, maybe there's like a sport where you can get away with it, but not running. There's no way you go out for a long run and don't eat before you go for a long run.
Yeah. Exactly.
I've done it because what I will do is part of my diet is I kind of do fasted cardio, but this is the major asterisk is breakfast for me starts around the time of day that lunch is for people. Yeah. But I'll still eat 3 meals a day and I'll have snacks in between. But my final meal or final snack might be at like right when I go to bed. Yeah. So I wake up, let's say I ate my last snack between 11 and midnight because we'll go to bed at like midnight. And then I wake up at 8 and go for a run. It hasn't been that long. Right. So there's still like nutrition, and I slept, I woke up, and I still have like fuel in my body. And that's just for like an easy run or easy workout. If I'm going to do a long run or a workout, I'm definitely going to like snack on something to have some fuel, some carb source. Maybe throw a few of those gummy bears back. Yeah. And then go. Yeah. Because you'll just feel worse. I have had the worst workouts, worst long runs without any fuel. And then when I get fueled, I'm like, whoa, it was crazy. My long run felt great today. Yeah, you take that first gel and you're like, whoa, this is wild. Yeah. And that's another thing is you don't have to eat like a ton. You don't have to have a huge giant breakfast before you run if you're waking up. I know a lot of athletes I coach will wake up at 5 in the morning and have to get a run in before work. And for them, I just say, take a gel or eat a granola bar or something like that with just carbs in it and a really good carb source. And you don't have to eat a ton, just eat something before you run so that you have some fuel in your body. Yeah, I remember before Mesa when I qualified for Boston, I was running like 19, 20 mile long runs for a couple weeks in that range, and I was crushing them. And one of my friends was like, you've been crushing your long runs, what have you been doing recently? And I had switched to eating like breakfast. I was like, I know this might sound crazy, but I like have some bagels before I like run. Yeah. And he was like, you idiot. easy things to miss out on, easy mistakes to be made, but they can make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they can make a huge difference. And you'll definitely feel it while you're running. So I can feel it, like I was saying, at Drew's parents' house. I could definitely feel the difference in not eating breakfast versus when I did eat before I ran. And yeah, it's a big difference. So yeah, make sure you're fueled when you're out there and running, for sure.
Yeah, really the theme, that was our last one of the nutrition block for today. But I think a major theme of a lot of these like myths that you hear a lot is it depends on the individual.
Yeah. Like
it really depends on who you are. It depends on your goals. What are you training for? Are you an NFL linebacker who needs to be a certain weight? Or are you an endurance athlete that needs to be a certain weight? Like what are your goals? Who are you personally? And good and bad are very relative.
Yeah.
In dieting. Food isn't necessarily bad or good. A donut could be good for one person and bad for another person in what their goal and who they are as a person.
Yeah.
You know? So there's no like good and bad. It's like, as a broad statement, it's for the individual. So know yourself, know your goals, and some of these things can help you reach those.
Yeah, have balance, enjoy what you're eating, and also, like Drew was saying, there's a big range of what healthy looks like too, and it's pretty generous. So if you're in that range, then you're doing well. And you can zone in to an even more specific part of that range based on what your goals are. And if you do that, then you do have to be a little bit more specific with your nutrition. But in general, you can eat really great foods and you can enjoy what you're eating and love it, and it doesn't have to be a huge burden for you, and you can still perform really, really well athletically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have friends where like I was working at this camp all summer at Lost Canyon, and I would eat the meals that they served for lunch, and they're like good meals, not necessarily healthy meals, but like mac and cheese and chicken nuggets and like meals that kids want, right? Because it's a camp for kids. And I'm sitting there eating it. And my friends who know that I'm like a marathoner and lifter and all these things are like, what, Drew? Like, how are you eating this? Like, they thought it was like wrong that I was eating it. Not in the sense that they were like, that's bad for you, but more like, how are you able to perform and eat these meals with us? And in my mind, it was like kind of sad because I'm like, I feel like more people could have a much healthier relationship with food, with their body, being able to have their cake and eat it too. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're either really elite, really fit, and you can do all these things, or you're just kind of destined to struggle and feel bad about yourself for your entire life. And we're like, no, it doesn't need to be that way. You can totally, like, moderation is the key, whole foods, a active lifestyle. I feel like average in 50 years hopefully could look so much different, where it's like, oh yeah, there's like a generous range to what health looks like. Eat foods that make you feel good, make you perform well in your life. You don't need to be an ultra runner to be healthy.
Yeah.
You don't need to be benching 250 pounds to be healthy. There's just moderation, and people could, out of those places, feel better. Mental fogs could like dissipate. Like, it would just be a more enjoyable world for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is crazy because now I think our lives are so different than our lives were as humans in like ancient worlds, because in those times they didn't worry about working out. Their working out was just like living their lives, like building their house, finding food, farming for food, like things like that, that just made them strong and in shape. And then they would eat the foods that they get, and they weren't overeating, they had enough food, and it was a little bit more simple. But now that everything is so accessible, I think we have this problem where it's like, well, now we need to exercise. Like, what do we do now that we can just like walk over to the store? Or now we don't even have to walk, we drive to the store. Some people even like drive around the store in those little carts. Yeah, get Uber Eats, whatever. You don't even have to go to the store anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything.
So I think that it has just shifted our mindset on what health and working out looks like, and working out is not fun for people sometimes. So
yeah, there's definitely a sacrifice to it. But it is kind of like people say, it's like choose your heart.
Yeah.
It's hard to be in shape. I would say it's harder to be out of shape.
Yeah.
Choose your heart.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point too. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We really, really appreciate all the support that we've been getting from you guys. And yeah, we're just excited to keep making great running content that you like and that's helpful for you. So with that being said, make sure you comment in the comments if you have any running questions or topics that you would like us to cover in the podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. That really, really helps us out, just helping other people to see our podcast. And, you know, if you like this, maybe share it with a friend. That's super helpful for us too, and hopefully helpful for your friend as well. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time.